Hello, and welcome to One Cool Thing, PC Mag's daily show on Facebook, where we show you one cool thing, which we are testing out in the PC Mag labs. I'm Sasha Segan, this is Max Eddy. We have Social Zach on the con today, subbing in for Pete. But please provide him your comments, your questions, your concerns, anything that you want to say. Zach will bring it to us. We will bring it back to you. It'll be a whole back and forth thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's absolutely. It's a beautiful thing, all these beautiful minds working together. The beautiful thing we have today to show you, actually, a lot of people this week are thinking about iPhones, right? They're thinking about iPhones. They're thinking about Apple Watches, things like that. So we decided to show you Android 8.0 Oreo. For everybody out there who is not getting an iPhone this week, Android 8.0 Oreo is the new operating system that Google will either be providing to your smartphone or be providing to a new smartphone which you buy in the future because your smartphone won't be getting the upgrade. So we're going to look at Android Oreo, we're going to look at some of its new features, its new apps, and we are also going to do a little bit of comparison between it and iOS 11 running on this giant iPad here. So, Max.
Hi.
Hi. So, Android Oreo.
Android Oreo.
Is it official? Can people just download it? What can they download it onto?
I'm so glad you asked that because I think this is going to be the biggest question that we have. So Android Oreo is available now. You should start getting it over the air if you're on a Pixel or a Pixel XL or a Pixel C. For like the 5 people, myself included, that have a Pixel C.
Oh man.
That's about it. But it will be coming soon to Essential phones, General Mobile phones, Huawei, HTC, Kyocera, LG, Motorola, Nokia, OnePlus, Samsung, Sharp, and Sony.
And now let's comment that only some phones produced by each of those companies. It's
Only
not,
some phones.
Right. So it's going to come to, it'll come to your LG G6. It'll come to your Samsung Galaxy S8. It's not necessarily going to come to your 4-year-old LG phone.
That's right. And even your older, like your Nexus phones, for example, I believe the 5X and the 6P will still be getting these, but anything older than that, Google has said 2 years and that's it. So unfortunately for your older devices, you're going to be stuck on Nougat, but Nougat's pretty good.
Nougat's pretty good.
Nougat's pretty good.
So Oreo, we are screencasting from this Nexus.
This Pixel.
Yeah, sorry, this Pixel XL to the screen over here. Showing Oreo, and now is it in any way immediately visibly different than Nougat?
No, but
wait, no, it is. I see something. I already see something different.
Where's Waldo? What do you see?
I see this Spotify app has a weird little dot.
Weird little dot right there. So that weird little dot indicates that something has been updated on that app. And actually, I thought I wasn't going to like this very much, but I do like Android's approach. Instead of the iPhone, which traditionally puts those badges there with the numbers on it, they've sort of moved away from that recently to more subtle dots. This is pretty good. You can turn that off in settings if you don't like it. And that's actually a big theme of this entire from this entire operating system update is that all the stuff that people used to do to customize their phones, to make them really theirs, is much more surface level now. You can do a lot more with a lot less effort.
Now, aren't the icons a little different too? I mean, I remember the icons are a different kind of mask in Oreo than in Nougat, right?
Now, keep in mind, because we're on the Pixel right now, what you're seeing is the Google Pixel launcher. So what you see in the final product is going to be a little bit different. But under the hood, these icons are now much larger, and then they are masked with another layer on top of it. So that means you can change their size to anything you want, and it'll look pretty consistent across all the devices. It also means they can do cool effects like parallax, have them slide back, or let me see if I can do one right here. So watch what happens with that Spotify. See, it kind of bumped up like that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to drop it back down, so
yeah.
this is that bump again. It's that button press.
Yeah.
And as another thing you'll see here is, so I'm pressing on this, and some of the options are popping up, like, hey, here's a notification related to that app. Here's some widgets that are available. Here's a search option, and I can actually grab that search option and break it out into I can't remember if they call them shortcuts or hot links. There's a specific term that they're using for these as distinct from other options. So that's pretty cool. You can have it right here. You can see, this is part of the Spotify app right there.
And you don't need any 3D touch for this.
There's no 3D touch happening on this, and thank God. So the biggest difference between Android 8 and Android 7 is in the notifications. I'm going to pull down on top. You can see there's a lot different already. It's wider, there's a lot more white space. A lot of the same stuff that we're all familiar with, like you pull down, you can see more of that. But you'll notice that this Spotify notification is big and blue. It's copying a little bit of the album art, and then it's extrapolating this color across the whole thing. This way, you can have like a little bit more attention drawn to this. You can see that this is really important. And that's really neat. Now I'm going to grab, I'm going to grab a hold of that. I'm going to slide it ever so gently to the side. And
and there's a clock. There's a clock there now.
There's a clock there, and there's this cog option. Let's start with the clock. So the clock is going to let me snooze this notification. I've snoozed that for an hour. I can snooze it for longer.
And now, like on Samsung phones previously, you could snooze all notifications.
Right, now, but this is now baked into the operating system.
Okay,
if you were doing it before, I assume the presumption now is that if you had this before on your handset, now it's being handled at like a better, more secure level, perhaps. So I'm going to actually undo that and bring that back. So you can snooze notifications. They'll pop back up later. And don't worry that you might get crummy notifications, because let's say you're in a bidding war with someone on eBay, and you want to get notifications about that. So if you snooze that notification for 30 minutes, and let's say you lose, or something important happens.
Because sometimes if you snooze, you do lose.
When you snooze, you can lose. However, now they're going to let developers update those notifications in the background. So let's say that notification that you snooze is no longer relevant. It will delete that one, and a new one could pop in. So it's really useful. It's very good.
I definitely, on my phone, one of the things that most frustrates me is if I decide to like go offline for a day, and I turn on my phone, I then have like 36 notifications in my window shade that I need to throw away, and some of them aren't even valid anymore.
So the hope is that if developers take advantage of that, they'll be able to have cleaner, nicer notifications all around. But here's the best way that we're going to be handling notifications. So you see, I now have this, I tapped on that cog, and I have one option here for notifications. Other apps will have like 5 or 6 or 7 of these things, and that's because Google is now breaking down notifications into channels. If you are a developer and you are targeting Android 8, you need to put your notifications into these channels that you can define yourself. Otherwise, your notifications won't appear here at all. But that means that users can say, like, well, I don't want to get notifications about new songs, but I do want to get notifications about XYZ things.
And now this formerly would be in either the application settings page or in your phone's system settings, but it pulls it out to somewhere more usable.
Well, it's actually very different now. Some apps had this option, had similar options before. You could go into the app's specific settings inside the app, and you could say, I want this kind of notification, I want that kind of notification. But that was handled at the app level. This is now higher up. It's being handled at the OS level, and they're forcing developers to say, you need to take your notifications and break them apart, and you need to let us see that.
Okay, so now how about that Android system notification there? Is that something new about Android 8?
So there are some things I don't like. Then I should say generally, I really like Android 8. When I saw a lot of these, especially these notification options being showed off at Google I/O, I was really excited. I am, like you, frustrated with notifications. It took us a long time to get push notifications, and now they're a bit of a burden. So one thing you'll notice right here is I've got a notification that says 2 apps are running in the background, and I can pull that down and see a little bit, expand it and see a little bit more about that. So what's happening here is that there are new limitations on what apps can do in the background. Developers can't like hog your location data, they can't hog your clock cycles, they can't even use your wireless data as often as they used to. That's good. That means you get better battery life, less stuff clogging up your phone. The downside is that if your apps are not working correctly or they're doing something in the background, you now get this notification.
So this is kind of a shaming notification. This is to humiliate the people behind Google Play services.
I'm not sure why that's happening.
An odd thing to complain about.
So I can snooze this notification, but note, I can only snooze it for 2 hours. It's really not enough. But I am going to swipe this over here again so you can see some of these notification channels. So I'm going to tap all categories. And now you can see all of these categories down here that I can get notifications on. It's pretty cool.
Let's see. Do we have any questions out there?
When will the upgrade be available?
The upgrade is available now if you are on a Pixel device or a more recent Nexus device, so the Nexus 5X and the 6P. There's a whole laundry list of devices that could get Android 8 soon. A lot of that is up to the developers. I would say developers, I mean the manufacturers, excuse me.
The problem is it's up to both the manufacturers and the wireless carriers if you bought a phone through a wireless carrier. And none of them are giving really hard dates. A lot of them are saying later this year, a lot of them are saying early next year. It's a little unclear as to when for instance, especially popular Samsung and LG phones, especially the models sold by the US wireless carriers, are getting these updates. And that's just typical. That's just the way Android rolls.
So another big change that we're...
Let's take some more questions.
Are there any security improvements?
There are some security improvements, thank you for asking. So the biggest one is autofill. So previously, if you wanted to get your password into an app, you could use the Google Save passwords, you could use LastPass. It was kind of a cumbersome process.
I use Google Save passwords.
Yeah, but now the API for that is built into the operating system and it's accessible to other developers. So if you don't save your passwords with Google, for example, and you use LastPass, eventually you will be able to opt to have that as your autofill default. It's really neat, but again, it requires developer buy-in. Haven't quite seen a lot of that yet. I think developers are working really hard to bring that up because it's going to be very cool.
Now, what do you think of the reputation? I mean, Android still has a reputation because you see a lot of these articles that Android is, easy to infect, has a lot of malware, has malware problems. What do you think of all of these stories that really do seem to come out on a basis every month or two of, oh, somebody found some horrible Android malware?
So there's really two schools of thought about this, right? So Google says, look, we're doing a lot on the back end, and we are securing our devices to within a very small percentage. But it's important to remember that when you have a small percentage of a billion or so devices, that's a lot of people. That's hundreds of millions, hundreds of thousands of people experiencing these problems. But the thing is, a lot of them are not using Google Play services.
Right.
A lot of these security options that Google is using are being pushed to the back end. They're very invisible. In fact, the last couple of updates, there's things like Safety Net and other features which allow Google to provide sort of the same protections that they provide to Google Play users to people who are not using that. So they can identify something potentially malicious on your phone. But they're really trying to reach out to those people in other countries in China where those app stores are really not in use.
I'd like to point out that all of the phones sold in the U.S. and Canada are using Google Play services.
Right.
They do have these Google software security improvements. The issue, there's two issues, and one is China, where Google Play services is not permitted by the government, right?
There are also places like India where the Google Play stands next to other very popular third-party app stores, which have very strong reputations. It's kind of normal to maybe get your apps from other places.
But the other problem is there are still devices being sold, even here in the United States, which have very, very old versions of Android that have not been patched, have not been updated, and have basically been abandoned. This is often the cheap tablets and things that you'll get at a Walgreens behind the counter. You'll find that they have Android 4.1 on them or something.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't be buying those.
And by Google's own accounting, a very significant portion of people are using, I think, versions even as far as 3 versions, 4 versions back, excuse me, up to 25% of some users. So one thing that you're going to see right here, though, I'm in the Google Play Store, and I see this little shield, and it says, no problems found. Google is making an effort to sort of raise awareness on the back-end work that they are doing. So this is one example of where you're seeing that. One of the coolest things, one of the best security improvements is actually one I can't show you because it is sort of under the hood. But previously, if you wanted to install an app from somewhere that wasn't Google Play, let's say your computer or something, you had to turn on allow unknown sources.
Unknown sources.
This was a single toggle that basically said, yes, let other people install stuff on this phone. And that's kind of cool, but the problem is once you turn it on, anything can happen.
Right.
Google's been working very hard to take some of those permissions and make them far more granular. Now, when you install from outside of Google Play, it is on an app-by-app basis. You approve them one at a time. This is really, really good. It makes it much harder for let's say, an application that is 90% good and 10% evil, but that 10% is installing 40 evil apps. It's going to prevent that from happening. It's a great, great improvement. I'm really happy to see it.
Now, I'd really like you to show it. I want to make sure we have time. I'd really like you to show us picture-in-picture. That's one of the more graphical changes with Android 8.
Oh no! Okay, I just realized I forgot to set up Google Allo. Let's see if this works. Yeah, sure. Let's see how this goes.
So if you see that phone number, by the way, that is a test SIM we have. It is not actually anyone's phone number. The SIMs do get recycled periodically. You're not going to reach anybody if you try to call that number. We're just going to mute it, and then it will probably be reassigned to some poor schlub getting Verizon prepaid service.
Yeah, as this sets up, I'll tell you a little funny little anecdote. I still would get calls on some of our test phones from people asking, "Is Sheila there?"
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, buddy.
Oh no,
you're
like
so lost.
I've gotten birthday party invitations. I've gotten like invitations to family barbecues. I've gotten like, it's been sad what we've gotten on some of our test phone sims. I'll tell you that. We have some questions.
Is it true that after Android O, security updates will arrive at all phones at about the same time?
That's a really good question. There's been a lot of updates to this. I'm a little bit confused by this question because, as far as I know, Google has been pushing out monthly security updates on a very regular basis since I want to say 2015.
The issue is that wireless carriers have to participate in the security update process.
Cover
The
that up.
manufacturer and carrier still have to participate in the security update process. And if they decide not to, then you're not going to get the update. Android is still and will perpetually be a partnership between Google, the phone manufacturers, and the wireless carriers. And you can take some of those out of the loop by getting an unlocked Google Pixel phone, which gets you the most direct Google experience. But I can't think of anyone saying that there's not going to be a holdup based on manufacturers and carriers anytime
No,
in
I
the
think,
future.
and in fact, this is another one of the things that Google has sort of like pushed down to the Google Play Services level, where if your phone has Google Play, the Google Play Store, and is functioning, then it will, even if you're not really downloading a lot of apps from it, if it's on there, it's going to be delivering some security updates to you. Google is really taking this multi-pronged approach, and it's very confusing. The bottom line is, yes, there are still going to be flaws found in Android because it's really big and pretty open for research. And researchers are focusing on it because there's a lot of different ways to come at it. It's very interesting to work on.
Let's go to the picture-in-picture.
Unfortunately, I was not able to get the picture-in-picture demo to work, but I'll describe to you how it works. So if you're in an app that has video running across the full screen, then whenever you hit the home button, boop, it shrinks down right there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to drag it to the side. You don't have to say, put it in
It's kind of like
picture-in-picture
how
mode.
the YouTube app has worked for like the past two versions of Android.
Right, but on your home screen. Now, there are some tricky catches here. Now, like a lot of the stuff we've talked about, it's up to developers to roll this in. So you might be thinking, hey, what's something that Google has that has a lot of video on it? YouTube. Obviously, YouTube has this, and it does. If you pay, you have to get Google Red in order to get picture-in-picture through YouTube.
No, YouTube Red.
YouTube Red, whatever it's called, I don't care. Google, I love you. That was really scummy. Like, that is so dumb. It's a really cool feature, and a lot of people probably aren't going to see it right away. And that's too bad. Allo, if you're looking to get, like, just to take a look at it, Allo is probably the best place to see it. One last word about security updates. Anytime you click on a link, you usually go into like sort of an integrated browser in Android. It's basically a little pocket version of Chrome. That is now using all of Chrome's special safety features that are looking for malicious websites and looking for malicious activity. It's really great, and one of those things is like, I can't believe they weren't doing this from day one. So they're forcing that on developers now. You have to do it if you're going to use that at all.
Any more questions out there?
So you might be wondering about emojis, and I just want to take a minute to bring up this. So we have new emojis. The blob men are gone.
The blobs are gone.
R.I.P. I'm actually very sad about this too. I liked the blobs, but the blobs will live on forever in Google Hangouts.
Do you know what version of Unicode this is?
I believe it's 8 or
Not 9?
I
No,
can't
I
remember
hope
off the
it's
top of my
9.
head. I
it's
can't remember
9.
off the top of my head, but you should definitely look at it. But we got some new foxes, got some new animals, and most importantly, I'm looking forward here. There, we have the Velociraptor. This is by far the most important update, in addition to different couples, women in headscarves, that sort of thing. Really important stuff. But Velociraptor, critical, absolutely critical for your messaging needs.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Okay, great. So we're kind of running out of time here. Just to wrap up, is there any? I mean, the hardest thing about an Android update is of course that you might not get it.
Right.
But is there any reason you wouldn't want to update?
No, you should absolutely get it. Android 8 Oreo, it's a lot of subtle things, but it's stuff that really makes it better for the user. Just being able to take control of your notifications like that is really, really great.
Okay.
If we have just
we
2
don't
minutes.
have time.
Oh, okay. Well,
let's take one or two more questions, and then we have to go.
Would older phones with Android 5 be able to run Android 8?
It really depends on the phone. You're going to have to take a look. There's a big master list. We mentioned a few of the devices in our review of Android 8, so check it out on PCMag.com. But unfortunately, it's going to be, in a lot of cases, device, carrier, that sort of deal.
Yeah, the problem is if your phone is still on Android 5, probably the manufacturer has not verified even Android 6 or 7 for it, and there's no way you're going to get Android 8 because, once again, you're not going to get it without your phone maker's participation.
This is one of the unfortunate things about Android.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk about iOS 11. We're not going to have time,
Yeah,
so be sure to take a look on PCMag.com. We have a preview of all the cool things that are going on, specifically with this iPad Pro. The review will be up very shortly. A lot of the same stuff, very cool. We're really excited about it.
Okay, great. So this has been One Cool Thing. Thank you all for watching. We will be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow with another cool thing from the PC Mag Labs.